Hey there, woodworkers. Welcome to this episode of The Maker of Things with me, Jock. In this episode, I am going to show you how to build this simple crosscut sled for your table saw. But first, you should ask the question, why do you need a crosscut sled for your table saw? A crosscut sled is a woodworking tool used with a table saw to make accurate and safe crosscuts on wood. It enhances safety by keeping your hands away from the blade. It ensures precise cutting by perpendicular alignment. And it supports larger workpieces for better stability. It's versatile for various cuts, reduces tear out, and is especially helpful for those repetitive cuts. My table saw is around 685 millimeters wide, about 560 millimeters deep. I've still got a lot of 18mm plywood left from my previous projects that I've done. So I'm going to be building my table saw crosscut sled from plywood. I'm going to make my sled 650 millimeters wide by approximately 600 millimeters deep. This will allow me to cut a board that is 500 millimeters wide once the build is complete. Measure your own table in order to determine what size crosscut sled you would like to build and what size would suit you. Cutting the base is fairly straightforward. Mark out the dimensions that you need and cut it out. My fences will be 100 millimeters high, enough to clear the saw blade and still provide enough stiffness to the sled once the base is split into two. I am leaving a little bit of extra material on the height and the length of the fences when doing rough cutting so that I can trim them back to final dimensions once they are glued up together. When you glue up your fences, make sure that they are perfectly flat. I'm not going to take any chances. I'm going to use my spirit level and clamp it between my fences once they are glued up to make sure that they are perfectly flat. The runners are where you want to take your time. You want to make sure that these runners fit really well. If they are too tight in the tracks, they can bite into the track or get stuck. If they're too loose, they're going to cause inaccuracies and because of your cross-cutting sled moving around. So this is where you really want to spend the time to fine-tune the runners. There are a few alternatives that you can use for your runners. You can either use aluminium strips, you can use a type of plastic, you can use hardwood, whatever your choice is. All of these have its own benefits. With the base and the runners cut to size, the runners fitting into the tracks quite nicely, it's now time for us to assemble the base to the runners. Now, before I start, I'm going to take a couple of washers, put them into the tracks, and then I'll put the runners on top of the washers. The purpose for this is that because the runners are basically the same depth as the track, I need to make sure that my base will make proper contact with the runners for the glue up. And by placing these washers into the tracks, it will make sure that the runner stands proud of the table of the top of the saw. Next, I'm going to use the saw fence to line up the board, the base, and I am going to put down the base on top of the runners. I'll be adding a little bit of weight on top of the base and wait for the glue to cure. From here we're going to give everything a really good sand, and we're going to break those sharp edges with a router and clean it up nicely. With all the parts smoothly sanded and all edges broken, it's time to start the final assembly. To do this, we are going to cut the base of the crosscut sled, run about halfway down using the table saw's blade. With this curve and the contractor's square, we will square up the back fence. Note that squaring up the back fence is not as critical as it is with the front fence, but the better you get it, the better it will serve you down the road. As you can see, I've cut a little bit deeper into my crosscut sled. Again, not all the way through. The next part of the exercise is to mount the front fence. When mounting the front fence, we want to make sure that it is perfectly squared up. This is the most important part of the crosscut sled. So I'm going to use a 5-cut method in order to square up the front fence. For starters, I am going to square it up with a contractor square, the same way I've done with the back fence. And then from there, I'm going to drive a single screw on either side of the fence. Note that I am not going to be putting glue on in order to allow for future adjustments. In order to test the accuracy of the front fence of the crosscut sled, I'm going to be using method called the 5-cut method. I'm not going to go into too much detail on what I'm going to do, but I will give you 2 links in the description below. The first link in the description below will be from William that has developed this method, and in his video he explains in the greatest detail on how he developed this method and how to use it. The second video will be a link by Brian from Bike City Woodworks, where he has reduced the complexity of the method and simplified it for us to use more easily. He's also developed a website where you can input your parameters, your measurements, in order to fine-tune the adjustments on your fence. And that's the method I will be using today. According to Brian's calculator, I need to adjust the left side of my fence by 0.64 millimeters forward. So the way I'm going to do that is by using my feeler gauge. I've got a 0.64 plate here that I will shim in to between a block. That block will then be in place. That will be the final stop. Then I'm going to loosen the screw underneath the left side, push it forward, and then drive a new screw in. That will be the final position for my front fence on the crosscut sled. And that's it. With the adjustment made, I can turn it around, put in the rest of the screws.
I am really happy with how great this project turned out. I think it's going to simplify a lot of my future projects. Speaking of future projects, head on over to my channel and go and check any of my old projects and hit the subscribe button to be notified of any new releases of videos that I'm uploading. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and please leave a comment in the comment section. I'm still fairly new to YouTube and I'd love to hear your feedback and hear what you think about this build. Thanks for watching and happy woodworking. Until next time.